And now we all live in a very globalized world. What's happening in Taiwan can have ramifications for us here in India, especially for the tech and auto sector. We've been battling a chip shortage across the world and even here in India for the last couple of years. But the global supply chain for semiconductors is highly dependent on Taiwan, namely a company called TSMC. So what does this mean for India and the rest of the world? Here's a special report.
Just as the Indian auto industry was emerging from its worst slowdown ever, there are fears the semiconductor supply crisis could return. These images of the latest and most potent weapons in the arsenals of China and the United States have rattled the world these past 2 days, with the industry dreading the prospect of China throttling the supplies of semiconductors from Taiwan. Last year, Taiwan controlled 63% of the world's semiconductor supplies. South Korea, with companies like Samsung, had 18% of the market, while China had 7% of the market share. US and other countries had the remaining 15%. Simply put, the world is dangerously dependent on Taiwan for its chip supplies. The great chip shortage of 2021 startled the industry and the world, which rudely woke up to the fact that their most critical high-tech components were at the mercy of foreign nations. This was what tech major IBM said in a white paper in March 2021. You never want to be in a spot where another nation can control a valuable resource that your nation depends on. The US, wary of the global tilt, passed a mega $280 billion CHIPS Act, which received rare bipartisan support in both houses of the Congress. India, which announced its $10 billion semiconductor policy last December, has only taken some baby steps in this area. The country still imports 100% of its chip supplies.
भारत चिप टेकर से चिप मेकर बनना चाहता है। सेमीकंडक्टर्स का उत्पादन बढ़ाने के लिए भारत में तेजी से निवेश बढ़ रहा है। यानी मेक इन इंडिया की शक्ति और डिजिटल इंडिया की ताकत की डबल डोज भारत में इंडस्ट्री 4.0 को नई ऊंचाई पर ले जाने वाली है।
However, most of India's chip imports are from China and not Taiwan. Ministry of Commerce data shows India imported over $8 billion of digital integrated circuits alone in 2021-22, of which China accounted for over 50% of supplies, a rise of 106% on year. This was followed by Hong Kong at around $1.8 billion. Singapore took third place, supplying chips worth $547 million, while Taiwan came fourth with supplies worth $470 million. Meanwhile, at least 2 international consortiums have expressed interest in investing in the semiconductor industry in India, with Karnataka, Gujarat and Maharashtra aggressively wooing this technology. While India may not be in the fab picture at present, one of the big advantages it enjoys is its strength in chip design. Nearly 20% of the world's design engineers are Indians, and most are employed by foreign companies in India.
Neil, what a pleasure to have you with us on Business Today, on Tech Today. Neil, just to start off by asking you, if we look at what's happening in the region, especially around Taiwan, now we know in the tech world how much of the global supply chain is dependent on Taiwan, one particular company, especially TSMC. Would you say this is a cause for concern when we really get these nostalgic, alarming sound bells from the past with what happened with the previous chip shortage?
Yeah, we are just coming out of one chip shortage, as most of these foundries like TSMC, which is the leading fab globally, turning out chipsets across everything for every particular product, right from smartphones to PCs to even cloud data storage. So if something happens with respect to geopolitical tension between China and Taiwan, and TSMC has become more strategic in a sense for China with its semiconductor ambitions, and to protect those, it could seriously affect the overall supply in the industry, because if China makes a move, obviously TSMC relies a lot on equipment and technologies from countries outside of Taiwan, which is US, Japan, Europe, and so forth. So if something happens, it's going to be a big blow for the entire industry, not just India, but entire industry. To be specific, 80% of the smartphone chipsets right now are actually being manufactured at TSMC. So which is huge. And when you add PCs and tablets and so forth, which is growing in terms of semiconductor content, even the data storage and cloud, as we have seen with the recent Intel and AMD earnings, everything is shifting towards more on TSMC being one of the big fab for manufacturing those. So India is reliant on semiconductors from chipset perspective. Almost 27 to 30 billion dollars of semiconductors will be imported this year in India, and bulk of it, which are the high value items, are churning out from TSMC.